What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of an NBA player ranking gone spooky. As always, I am your host, Zach Cronin, and today we're going to be talking about the top 100 NBA player rankings that ESPN published recently, but I'm not going to be talking about the list in its entirety. There's really only one portion of it that I want to focus on, and it was where they ranked Shea Gilgeous Alexander. Now, the reason I don't want to go through this list player by player is because I already did that with the Bleacher Report ranking, and I felt that, that content in particular is kind of redundant, at least to me, because these lists all serve the same purpose. It is a bunch of experts, quote unquote experts, whatever you want to say, giving their 2 cents on player A versus player B. That is the methodology that Bleacher Report used, and that is also the methodology that ESPN used. To get the final NBA rank prediction, we asked our expert panel to vote on player versus player matchups from more than 15,000 possible pairings. Voters were asked which player will be better in 2023-2024 and had to predict how each player will perform this season. This, of course, brings a lot of silliness into the conversation because you're looking at each player through the lens of their own situation instead of looking at each player just in a vacuum of how good they are, which is how I think a list should be properly formatted. Now, do with that information what you will. I've said in the past that I'm not really a person who prefers to make these kinds of lists. By no means do I consider myself like a basketball expert. I'm simply just a guy who has a chair and a microphone who likes to talk about the NBA and about the NBA players. But ESPN's list, as these lists tend to do, caused quite a flurry online on Reddit, on Twitter. JJ Redick had a little like 35-second piece on his podcast that got sent to YouTube, which was the clip that I watched, where he just basically disagrees wholeheartedly with how ESPN did their rankings, and I tend to agree. I think that that methodology is silly. The player versus player debate model just doesn't really hold up. He used Jordan Clarkson versus Russell Westbrook, and obviously most people are going to take Russell Westbrook over Jordan Clarkson, but how does that methodology make sense in ranking Russell Westbrook wherever he was ranked? Because in terms of being a player, even though, Russell Westbrook has become sort of a punching bag toward to people on the internet, he is still a very good player who can contribute to winning basketball. Like, does he deserve to be ranked 77th just because he was picked over Jordan Clarkson? Now, again, I don't know if that's where he was ranked, but you could see where this methodology gets kind of weird. And I think that where Shea Gilgis Alexander landed on this list, he landed at eighth. He was a top 10 player. He's expected to be a top 10 player this year, according to ESPN. Some of the people he landed in front of includes Damian Lillard, who was somehow ranked 14th on this list. Anthony Edwards comes in at 13th, Jimmy Butler at 12th, Devin Booker at 11th, Anthony Davis at 10th, and LeBron James at 9th. Now, if any of you watched when I did the Bleacher Report video, I very quickly and very reactionarily said, "Oh yeah, SGA is a top 10 player in the NBA," and then I quickly remembered that no, he's not. There are 10 guys that are definitely more deserving of being in that top 10 slot than him. Although I will not entirely deny SGA's case to being a top 10 player because the numbers back it up. 30 averaged 31 last year, 5.5 assists, 1.6 steals, about 5 rebounds, had ridiculous efficiency as well. Did finish top 5 in the MVP voting as well. But yeah, the more I looked at the Bleacher Report list and the more I look at the ESPN list, I'm like, it doesn't really make sense to me to put LeBron behind Shea, even though LeBron is a little bit older, to put Anthony Davis behind Shea, to put Dame behind Shea, who just who's coming off a season where he was statistically better than SGA in terms of points per game and assists, and also had better efficiency from the field, or at least from behind the line and at the free throw line. It was similar in terms of, overall field goal percentage, 46%, which is pretty remarkable considering Dame's age and, the style that he plays with. And then to also have Devin Booker behind Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, like, it doesn't really make sense to me. I think that Shea is comfortably top 12 in the NBA, could maybe make the leap into being top 10 this year. I saw folks on Reddit talking about how the admiration for Shea is almost unseen. He's in a position that Devin Booker only recently came into, and Devin Booker has been in the league since fucking what, 2015 or something. He's been in the league for almost 10 years, which holy shit makes me old as fuck. Yeah, it's just really odd. And then, I'm trying to think of all of the ways that this methodology could lead to this. Okay, SGA is considerably younger than everybody else that I had just mentioned. Not significantly younger than Devin Booker, but Dame is 20, Dame is 32. Anthony Davis is going to be 30. LeBron is fucking going to be 39 this year. Shea is 24. Devin Booker is about to be 27, I think, at the end of October. So, okay, yeah, you could say that age is potentially a factor, but this is a single season ranking. Typically, the age of a player only comes into effect when you're having the long term versus short term debate, which makes sense, which is why, as the years have gone on, you've seen more of a shift towards guys like Luka and Giannis and Jokic from guys like LeBron and KD when GMs are asked who they'd want to build their team around. And I have the numbers all pulled up here for you guys. This is courtesy of Basketball Reference. SGA has comparable numbers to all of these guys. Was second in scoring, was I believe second in assists as well. Oh, I'm sorry, he was tied for third in assists with Devin Booker. Of course, his shooting numbers are off the charts. It actually becomes even clearer, or I don't want to say even clearer, but you could actually make this case even more so when you look at the advanced statistics. In terms of win shares per 48, SGA, number one. In terms of overall win shares, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, number one. In terms of box plus minus, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, number one. In terms of PER, SGA was second behind Anthony Davis. I think what the actual factor, what I think the real factor was in SGA landing where he did in this list was health. The one similarity between AD, between LeBron, between Booker, and between Dame was that they all played fewer than 60 games last season. SGA was at 68, which is 10 more than the next closest guy, which is Damian Lillard. And we hear people talk about it all the time. The best ability is availability. Now I'm going to go ahead and just give you the remainder of ESPN's top 10 list. Coming in at number 7, we have Kevin Durant. Now, Kevin Durant is also, what the fuck? Fucking bug dive bombing me during my video. Jesus Christ. Now we have Kevin Durant, number 7. KD is also a guy who has battled injuries throughout his career. And of course, more recently has battled significant injuries, but I don't really think there's a debate. Kevin Durant is better than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. There's no debate there. You have Jason Tatum, whom I believe is very much better than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, has all of the same abilities to score, plus has bigger size on the perimeter, and is also a much better, maybe not a much better defender, but an improving defender, and I think a better defender than SGA. At number 5, you have Steph Curry. I think that Steph is maybe a little bit too high in this list. I think in Bleacher Report he was like 6 or 7, but it doesn't matter. Steph is still comfortably a top 10 player in the NBA right now. Number 4, Luka Doncic. Number 3, Joel Embiid. Number 2, Nikola Jokic does simply not make any sense considering that he is literally the best player in the NBA. He was the best player on the team that won the fucking title. But regardless, you have a trio of a top 3 of Giannis, Jokic, and Embiid in that order, which is pretty comfortable for me. I believe that those guys are pretty much the 3 best players in the league. But to focus back to SGA, I maybe I'm just biased because I grew up watching LeBron. I grew up watching Anthony Davis. I grew up watching Devin Booker. I mean, grew up. Devin Booker and I are literally the same fucking age, but you guys know what I mean. Like, I grew up watching LeBron, AD, Dame. I'm just not ready to let go of them and recognize the fact that they are beginning to decline. But I also recognize the fact that SGA is most certainly a guy who belongs in this conversation. I don't think this is as big as a fuck up as some people might. I think that when I was doing the Bleacher Report list, Julius Randle was a fucking like a borderline. He's like the 55th. They ranked him the 55th best player. I think that is more disrespectful to Julius Randle than to LeBron, AD, Dame, D Book being ranked above SGA. Maybe a bigger conversation is how Dame managed to slip to 14th because is Anthony Edwards better than Damian Lillard? I'm not so sure. Does he have the potential to be better than Damian Lillard? Yes, I believe so. But statistically, Dame was better last year. Is Damian Lillard better than Jimmy Butler? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, we saw what Jimmy Butler did all throughout the playoffs last season. We know the kind of player that Jimmy Butler is, but this is like we are when you get into these kinds of debates, when you get into the top 15 of any ranking, it's more or less just like splitting hairs. You're debating the 1% of the 1% of NBA players. Any differences are going to be minute. I mean, just like statistically, look at how similar all of these guys are statistically. It's mind boggling. The answer to what I'm going to put in the title is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a top 10 player in the NBA. I'm going to say not yet, but arguably. I think that maybe, and also another thing is maybe I will never see eye to eye with this new style of listicle because I have a different methodology. When I look at these guys, and again, not that I'm ever going to rank 100 NBA players because that list would get fucking laughed off the internet. When I'm looking at these guys, I'm not thinking about, their situation. I'm thinking, is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander better than Damian Lillard? Yes or no? And I will say, yes, barely. Do I think that SGA is better than LeBron? No, I do not. Do I think that SGA is better than Devin Booker? No, I do not. I think that Dame and SGA are probably like 12th and 11th on this list, on like a hypothetical list. Anthony Davis deserves to be in the top 10. LeBron deserves to be in the top 10. I think Devin Booker deserves to be in the top 10 as well, especially considering where he started in his career and where he is to now, a legitimate like 28 points a night while being able to facilitate a legitimate offense is a skill set that few people have. One that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is developing, but I think that Devin Booker is just a little bit farther along than he is. I think another reason why doing player A versus player B is kind of silly, especially when you get into the top 15, is because 98%, I would say even probably like 99% of NBA players, their performance is going to be dependent upon their situation. You have a lot of role players who are going to have different production depending on where they play. Let's take a guy like Derek White, for example, who is a very, very impactful player, regardless of where he's going to go. But a lot of that impact lies on defense. If you have a team that is unable to generate catch and shoot threes, then Derek White's impact on offense is going to be a little limited. However, he's still going to have that presence on defense. When you get into the top 15, Dame, Ant-Man, LeBron, Luka, Tatum, even Kawhi, these guys are going to perform at this level regardless of what their situation is. And it's because they have proven to be able to do that. LeBron, wherever he's gone, has been a monster. Tatum, whatever the Celtics have looked like, he's been a monster. Luka, whatever the Mavericks have looked like, he's been a monster. Shai is just now beginning to enter that portion of his career. The only thing is, will he be able to continue to produce with this level of efficiency? I don't see any reason why he can't, but I do think that maybe it is a little premature to vault him into the top 10 over guys who are proven. But again, you may think differently, and that's totally cool. Listen, we're debating about fucking the all NBA guys right here. I'm not gonna get up in arms over this debate. Maybe it's just I'm locked into my way of thinking, and that's just how it is. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and close this video out. Thank you guys so very much for coming to hang out with me today. As always, everything I'm associated with is down in the description box below. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a like on this video as well. Comment down below. It helps out tremendously with the algorithm. And with that, I'll catch y'all in the next one.